Hello, eighth grade. How are you? Everybody, we are looking at stage 21, and today we are looking at the perfect passive participles, about the language. This is a big one, and fortunately for us, it's a pretty easy one, and you guys already have this down, I think. All right. So basically, participles, as long as you understand that concept from stage 20, you get the idea of what we're talking about here. A participle, it comes from a verb, but it describes a noun. So remember in stage 20, we learned present active participles, pants. So you've got a couple of examples here at the top of the page on the about the language, right? From quaero, the verb that means to look for or to seek or to search for. So quaerentes, remember pants, there's your NT with the S, right? So that is PA for present active, and then NT with the S there. So this means looking for. So it comes from the verb quaero, quaera, but it means looking for. It's describing the slaves in this instance. So the slaves looking for their master hurried through the house. Or, of course, you can flip it around as they've done. The slaves hurried through the house looking for their master. All right, same thing with sedens, right? Sedeo, sedere means to sit. But here, with this NT, we are um, we are using it to describe the mother. So the girl saw her mother sitting in the garden. So from a verb, used like an adjective. That's it. Used to describe a noun. Okay, so let's look at perfect passive participles, and let's go back to your model sentences because they did a really good job here. So look at the second one, and in this second one, you have the verb laudavit, right? The architect praised the craftsman. And then in the next sentence, you have the craftsman, the worker, having been praised by the architect, was really happy. So, comes from a verb, laudo, laudare, to praise, but it is used as an adjective here, having been praised. Or honestly, you can just say praised. I'm going to keep reinforcing the having been thing because that really lets us know it's the participle instead of just praised, because we could get confused, right? Because praised could just be I praised, you praised, we praised, and it could be actually just the verb. So having been praised by the architect. Notice too that you've got this by the person here. This is actually, it's called an ablative of agent. Okay, now you don't have to know that, that's okay, but it helps us identify the participle in these initial examples here that are in stage 21 and then in stage 22 as well. So praised by the architect. Now look at the next example. The architect kind of yelled at, incited, encouraged the worker. And so the worker, having been incited by the architect, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so comes from incito incitare, to incite, urge on, arouse, encourage, but it's used here as a description, right? It's used here as an adjective modifying the worker having been incited by the architect. Okay, look at number 4. The architect yelled at, cursed at the worker. And so the worker, having been yelled at by the architect, having been cursed at by the architect. And then I think we should have one more here. So the architect, arkesiwit, from the verb to summon. And here, so the architect summoned his slaves. And then in the next sentence, we have the slaves, having been summoned by the architect, did this or did that. So the most of the perfect passive participles look kind of similar, okay? And basically what's going on here is they are the fourth principal part of a verb. So if you have excito, excitare, excitavi, it's excitatus, eidefico, eideficare, eideficavi, eideficatus. Let's look over in the vocabulary checklist, everybody, and you'll see some of these fourth principal part. Kelo, kelare, kelari, kelatus. Afficio, afficere, affici, affectus. Okay, here's one that doesn't look quite like it, It doesn't have a T, does it? Ubeo, ubera, usi, usus. Okay, so it is the fourth principal part of the verb, and it means having been blanked. Perfect passive participles. You will hear me talk about these as PPPs. So you know I like my abbreviations and my nicknames, right? So present active participles were pants, perfect passive participles were PPP. Okay, so if we look in number 4, the first thing I would want you to do is say, okay, where is the participle? Which word is the participle? So I'll give you a second, pause it, and think about what is the participle in A. All right, hopefully you got verberatus is the participle. All right, now I'm going to have you pause it again and think about this. This comes from the verb to beat. And so how would we translate verberatus? Remember above we had incitare meant to incite, and incitatus meant having been incited. This means to beat, so what does this mean? Having been beaten. Okay, let's look at this archesiti, right? That's the same participle that we saw in the model sentences. Think about what that means. Pause it, think about it. Okay, having been summoned. All right, remember we had laudavit in the model sentence and then laudatus. Here's laudata because it's describing the ancilla. And so think about it. What does laudata mean? Having been praised. That's right. Okay. And here's aedificatum from the verb aedificare, to build. So what does that mean? Okay, good. So aedificatum, so having been built. All right. So your PPP, having been blanked. You need to be able to identify it. Verberatus, archesiti, laudata, etc. Need to be able to translate it, having been blanked. And then, of course, get that working in a sentence. All right, everybody. Good luck.